URI Just Getting Started, episode 8. We've already had one of your good friends on. I think episode 2 was Delroy James, so maybe we'll talk a little bit about him. He's a great guy, and I think you guys are pretty good friends. But anyway, how is it going, Orion? It's so good to have you on the show here today. I mean, you're one of my favorite players. I do say that every show, though, but you really you really are a special player that just I call you one word: high flying. Have you heard that before?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have. I've heard that many a times in the past. I really appreciate you reaching out. I feel honored to be on here. I always have love for my Rhody fam. That's like, a lifetime bond for me. A lot of fond memories at URI. So, it's an honor. And, I just want to thank you for, having me on. It was definitely an interesting experience my senior year. I think that was the year we've had the most freshmen on the team of the 4 years that I was playing there. So, coming, from always playing behind, the other URI big greats like Will Martell, Seedright, Jason Francis. No, that was my year to finally come in and take over that spot as like, the big guy on the team. Playing with a lot of really talented freshmen that we had in that year: Mike Powell, TJ Buchanan, Ray Harris, Dominique, Sponge. We had a lot of guys. And then you had Billy and Andre, Nick and Jamal. So it was a really talented team, but it was just so many new players at the same time. We had a lot of learning curves as the season went on, trying to figure each other out. Freshmen with a lot of inexperience coming from high school, where they were used to being like the main guys, where they would be scoring or playing minutes, and now coming to a Division I college level where you have to kind of find your role. So it was tough, but at the same time, I don't take any of that experience for granted. I've still had a great year, a great time playing my senior year. That was, like you said, my time to shine. Be my first time as a starter, and getting to log a lot of minutes, and just getting that experience over that season.
Well, we have a similar friend. I don't know if you know this. I'm from Miami. I live in Miami, and there's a gentleman that I got to know really well before he came to Kingston, Sponge Holton.
Yeah.
So how was it? To me, you had to be a little bit of an enforcer because you had so many personalities and young players, and it seemed like you just, from my intelligence talking to people, I think you took a role as the enforcer in the locker room. Am I right about that?
Yeah, I'd say to a certain extent, being, one of the seniors on the team and also probably the biggest guy on the team, just by default, the freshmen, they had their times where they were, get a little rowdy, and, they kind of looked at me as like, a big brother figure, so they kind of, they respected when I was like, all right, it's time to calm down, cut the jokes, to get serious. And they were a good group of guys, very, very energetic. It was tiring some days, but I loved it.
Tell me the truth now. Did Sponge make it a little tiring for you?
Sponge, yeah, he was a character. He is such a strong personality. Like he goes hard. He was probably our best rebounder that year. He played like at 100% pretty much all the time. And being a freshman, sometimes it was a challenge to try to channel that energy and to getting him to make some better decisions and stuff like that. But Sponge, along with the rest of the freshmen, I feel like they took leaps and bounds throughout the season, improving as players, coming into a situation where they had to play and they had to be counted on right from the start. So I think that helped them out a lot as the season progressed.
Well, you look like a super nice guy, but I think that when it comes down to hitting the hammer down on people, I don't know, maybe even Sponge, you were able to do that. I heard, some extracurricular activities, and you were the guy to keep the ship going. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I'd say that's about right. They definitely respected me. Let's just put it like that.
Yeah. Well, why don't we go without further ado to the deck? Who is Orion Outerbridge? And why don't you take me through your career starting in high school? I noticed you had a couple of different schools, your junior and senior year, and you were had a 3-star rating at Rivals, I believe.
Yeah.
What went on in your You had a nice ranking too. You were a pretty good recruit for Rhode Island coming in. I was really excited when I saw that you accepted the offer there.
I didn't really start playing basketball until I was around like 14, 15 years old.
Oh, wow.
So going into that was my first experience playing on like an actual basketball team. And that's where, the basketball bug bit me. I think it was, like I said, nobody in my family plays. So I didn't really get introduced to it until I had transferred to a new middle school. I was awful. I couldn't.
Really?
I had 2 left feet. I couldn't dribble. I couldn't make like simple layups. Like the simplest things were like level 10 hard for me to do when I first started playing. But
Wow.
I was fast. I was long. I could jump. I just didn't have basketball coordination.
Mm.
Where I ended up getting this opportunity to go all the way to California to a school out there. And that was a whole crazy situation in itself. Thinking back on it, it probably wasn't the best idea to go there, but not knowing the whole rules situation with, having to be living in a residence in the area to go to these public schools, I listened to some, coaches who also sent some other players out there, and they sent me and like a couple other guys from Boston, some guys from New York. We played on this basketball team in California called Freemont,
Yes.
Freemont High School. And that was where I started to get my first like college basketball recruitment. And this is my junior year. And that team that year was really good. The previous year before I got there, that team had went undefeated in their league. And then they graduated like a couple seniors that were like the top players in those cities. So then the next year comes and, I appear out of nowhere, a couple other guys, we go in there and we kill the league again and go undefeated. And it raised a lot of eyebrows. And they did this whole investigation on our team, and they found out that, we were from Boston. And long story short, they ended up, saying, all right, you guys, you can't do this.
Yeah. So it must have been a real stressful time when you went to California, and it was great. And then all of a sudden it was bad, I guess. How was it like being involved in that? It's kind of like you were in the wrong place at the wrong time type of thing.
I look at California as like a curse and a blessing in a sense. I was only 15 years old, like I still don't know to this day how the coach convinced my mother to let her 15-year-old son, who's never been away from home, go across the country to live with like pretty much strangers, for the sake of basketball, the sport I've only been playing for a couple of years. But it didn't end well, only because of the technical, stuff with the whole jurisdiction and, not being able to play here because you don't actually live here, all that. But from a basketball standpoint, I don't regret going. And then ended up getting Hampton out of that. So it all worked out at the end of the day.
Anything penalty wise where you had to sit out a little bit, or you were able to
So me, along with the other few guys who were there, we were like pretty much not allowed to go back to the school, which it's obvious we don't live there. We're not supposed to be going there in the first place. So they kind of like, told us, all right, you guys have to leave. And they forfeited the whole season. They even forfeited the JV team season, who had nothing to do with what was going on, the men's, senior team. And they ended up suspending the coach as well, too.
Wow.
But this is all things that I had no idea this was a thing. Like, I'm getting told one thing by this guy, and he's making it seem like, oh, everything's okay. I wasn't, I didn't know about the rules and all this and that. So I'm just going, thinking I'm getting a great basketball opportunity to go play at the school in high school in California and, get recruited and all this and that. And then when all the stuff started coming out, basically we did it to ourselves by winning too much. Getting everybody, these random people that nobody had ever seen before, just raised a lot of eyebrows. That's when the investigation started. I guess they had people back home from the Boston Globe, like trying to figure out where we lived to show that our parents were in one place and we were in another, and we weren't living with our parents. So it was a whole disaster in that aspect.
Sounds like a documentary, and you don't want the Boston Globe poking into your business.
I had a few letters from like Illinois, St. Mary's, Pepperdine, and the West Coast schools when I was at Fremont. But it wasn't until I got to New Hampton that I started to get, the Kansas letters, the Miamis, the St. John's, the Xaviers, pretty much all the A10s, a couple Big East schools. That's when it was just like my recruiting exploded, and it was a lot for me. Nobody else in my family plays basketball. I'm the only one, so my family was not really privy to the whole recruitment process when it came to college basketball and all that. So kind of had to figure out a lot of stuff on my own. But I ultimately ended up choosing Rhode Island. Scurry was a hell of a recruiter. He was on me a lot, and he got me to come down and take my unofficial, and I liked it. It wasn't too far from home, only about an hour and a half, more or less, down the road. So that allowed my mom and dad and brother to come, see games and stuff. And I really liked what Coach Jim Barron had going on, the style of play that he had for us, running Rams, and I feel like that fit my style of basketball back then, being a really athletic guy who liked to get up and down the court. So it was just, it just seemed like the perfect fit for, a guy like me. Oh yeah, no, it was an amazing experience. I'm still thankful and blessed to even be playing today. Like it was a doozy. That year I left Rhode Island. It was probably the worst timing in terms of trying to become an overseas basketball player, because my first actual professional team was a team in Thessaloniki, Greece, called Aries. And that was my first professional pro contract. But that happened to be also the same year that Greece had a really bad recession, and like they were in really big trouble money wise. And that created a lot of complications in terms of payments for players that year. So I signed up for the National D League tryout, which was thankfully the location for the tryout was in the same gym that was owned by my agent in Basketball City down in New York. So I took a train down. I signed up. I paid the fee to do the tryout, and it was just a one-day thing. They mostly had us just playing scrimmages, and I went there and I killed that. And I was a standout player there. And obviously I raised some eyebrows for some teams there. And I did the tryout, went back home, and probably a couple of days later, I get a call from Coach Barron. And I haven't heard from Coach Barron since I left URI. So I was just like, wow, what's Coach B doing calling me, So he calls me, he tells me, Santa Cruz is really interested in me. They called him to talk about me and ask his opinion of me as a player, as a person. And, he said all good things, thankfully.
Yeah.
But he wanted to check in with me first to make sure that would be someplace I'd be interested in playing. And I was like, of course, definitely. Like, I would miss the chance to go back to, California. It's warm there. It's the D League team with the Golden State Warriors, who were, kind of up and coming at the time. So I was like, yeah, of course, coach. So I guess he relayed the message back to them, and they ended up picking me. I think it was like 50th overall in the draft. I think I was like one of the third pick in the second round or something like that. Yeah. So I tried the D League route with Santa Cruz, and unfortunately I had pulled my hamstring during training camp there. And that kind of set me back a bit, put me behind the ball conditioning wise, and just falling behind in terms of, growing with the team a little bit. But they still kept me on because that year they didn't really have a lot of big guys. So they kept me and, nursed me back to health, thankfully. And I ended up getting into the rotation and playing some minutes here and there. And I always contributed every time I got the game, whether it was rebounds or scoring, defense. But I just wasn't getting the amount of time that I really was hoping to get playing in the D League. Back then, it was still the NBA Development League. Now it's, the Gatorade League. But back then, they didn't really have a lot of money. The budgets weren't huge, and you weren't getting paid a lot. You kind of sacrifice money to go to the D League for the opportunity to get the chance of exposure in front of NBA teams and, maybe get a call-up or something. So for playing on a team where I'm not making that much money and I'm not really playing that much, I felt like I was kind of wasting my time in a sense. I'm not getting the exposure that I hope because I'm not able to get on the court and really play in front of the scouts. So I chose to leave. URI in 2012 with probably like a month and some change to go, probably like a semester to go. And I would have had to stay there. Had I stayed at URI, during the 2012 season, which was my senior, I would have had to finish those classes, and I would have had to take summer classes. But I was so, hell bent pro career after, the disappointing senior season, numbers wise,
Sure.
I decided to leave and said, I'll finish my school another time. And the years were going by, and I was playing and playing and playing, and not really worried about, finishing. And Thor reached out to me probably maybe a week or two after I found out I needed surgery. He was like, "Hey man, we'd love to have you come in and finish your classes. Everything will still be paid for. We just really want you to finish. You're so close." And I was like, "There's no perfect time other than right now to finish. I can't play. I'm laid up in the bed. They're doing the Zoom class because of COVID. So I'm like, you know what? Let's do it." And I signed up for classes, and I signed up for the spring semester. I took a full 4 classes the spring semester, and took another 3 for the summer sessions, and banged it out. I had a 4.0 GPA my spring semester, and
Awesome.
like a 3.8 my spring, and I finally finished it. So I'm so happy. It was like blessing in disguise. Everything happens for a reason. I didn't get to play last year, but I got to finish my studies and finally get my degree.
I hope people use you as an example when they're talking to younger players and the team now. And Thor was on last week, and isn't he such a great guy?
He's an amazing human being. Amazing human being.
Interacting with players, and this is an example. So he's getting on the phone. You've graduated for many years, and he's back there selling the program again. Good for him and good for you. We were talking about the players. Look at this. Imagine all of these on one team. I say definitely NCAA right here. So
yeah, for sure. We were always just a few games short some of those seasons. It was the A10, and it's so competitive.
How do you feel about seeing something like that? Does it give you chills?
It does. It does. that was a great game. That was a good game against BC. It is funny because I always wanted. We played BC. I think 3 out of the 4 years I was there, and we won every time. And it was just kind of like that's what you get for not recruiting me or offering me a scholarship. I'm a Boston guy. I'm right down the street. You didn't even really look my way, so I was like, all right, I'm gonna pay for that.
Tell me about that game. I mean, I know you had 15 points. You 5 of 6. You hit a key basket with 2 minutes left. I mean, what did that game mean to you? I mean, and first of all, it said you were coming back. Where were you coming back from? I couldn't figure that out.
So actually, I was ineligible the first half of my junior year. So after the sophomore year where we lost in the NIT, I took a mental dive on the basketball and academic side, and taking full accountability. I didn't do what I was supposed to, keep a mind at the bargain with school, and I let it slip, and thought I could just, whatever, I'll make it back up during summer classes, because I always did really well during my summer classes. It was, only 1 or 2 classes. It was, faster pace, and I always did really well. So I was like, whatever, I'll just do better in summer class, not realizing that I had to maintain a certain GPA level during the semester. So it didn't matter what I did in summer school if the GPA for the spring wasn't good, which mine wasn't. And I ended up having to sit out the first half or first couple months of my junior year. But Coach Barron, I assured him that, made a mistake, and I'd like to rectify it by, hitting the books, practicing hard, and just showing that I could stay on the team. And, thanks to him and, his staff, they, believed in me, and they gave me another shot. And I did. I hit the books and got myself eligible, and I was able to come back and stay on the team. I was still practicing with the team, of course, but I wasn't able to travel or play the games and stuff like that. But I was still in the loop behind the scenes in those first few months. And that BC game was my first game back from being able to be eligible. And for me, that was just like, redemption almost, It was so hard to be sitting on the couch and watching my team play, and like not being able to help them was like such a wake up call for me. Like, I'm letting my team down. Like, these guys believed in me. You know, I'm supposed to be out there with them, you know, going to war. So that for me was like all right, I'm back. I'm serious. I'm about the business. Let's get this win and let's beat BC. Like packed house right before I think Christmas break, and it was an amazing atmosphere. I remember, and yeah, I just let it all out in that game. First game back.
Sounded loud after that dunk. I mean,
yeah, it was a close game too. That's why.
Wow. I mean, that's why I kept going with that tape after your alley-oop. I just wanted to get the moment and feel what you felt and hear the noise of these Ryan Center.
Watch this loose ball.
Shot is one you got to get.
Yeah, the shot goes up with 6, but because it's knocked around, now watch. There's a trip right
got
there.
His hand. Oh my goodness.
Yep. You know, you have to be on that if you're the official.
The lead officials is turning to run, Fran.
Yep.
And you know, it's from
It's the
behind.
back guy.
Yeah,
it's the back guy. Yep.
I mean, it should have been called.
I think you got to call it. It's been a point of emphasis since November.
Wow. Tell me about that, Orion. I mean, I was watching that game and I haven't gotten over it. I'm going to a therapist. They're making tons of money from me. I mean, it just was such a bad call.
I was looking right at it. I don't see how they could have missed it. It was clear that, you know, Will Graves fell on Lamont's leg, and whether it was by accident or on purpose, I believe it was on accident. It happened. It was an inadvertent contact. He got tripped. That's a foul. No matter which way you want to look at it, you know, intent only matters to the person committing the act. So that's a foul. You got to call that at a big point in that game. But I feel like that was one of those times where it was, you know, UNC, Rhode Island, you know, and they decided to go with the no call. And, you know, UNC obviously was having a tough year that year. They're in the NIT tournament. You know, you don't expect to see UNC in the NIT tournament. Not that it's a bad tournament, but it's UNC, let's be honest. And, you know, I felt like they needed to give them that. But, you know, karma paid them back because they ended up losing to Dayton, another A-10 team anyway. So, hey.
I didn't even know. I stopped watching basketball after that play. Where were you in that? Were you out in the court at that play, or what was your game like?
No, I was on the bench. Nope. I was on the bench during that time. That was like right at the end of the game. I was so nervous that game, being in the Garden, playing against UNC. Like, man, I had the jitters like no other. Like I was hyperventilating at one point on the court. I couldn't catch my breath because I was so excited and nervous about being on that stage, you know, playing in the basketball mecca. And yeah, that was against a really physical team. You know, they had a bunch of really big guys on that team. That's, you know, that granted, I think our guys were just as talented as their guys, but their guys were just a lot bigger than us. They had, you know, Tyler Zeller, but we were still right there with them, you know, right down to that last play. You know, we had a chance to win. I think we even had a bigger fan base than them. I remember during the announcements, you would have thought it was a home game for us. How loud the crowd was, you know, cheering for us during introducing us. Yeah.
That's why I do these podcasts. I get nuggets like that. I never would have known that.
Yep.
And they're wearing your colors too. That's not right.
Yeah, exactly. It's so funny. Every time I see that clip, for a second, I have to realize that that's not Rhode Island. Like that first guy who takes that jump shot, he looks like Jamal Wilson. Like the form and the way he jumped. And then I'm like, wait, that's UNC. We're the team in the white.
I feel better. Same thing happened to me. I'm just now watching that video. By the way, I'm giving you props on that shirt, Running Rams. I like that.
Yeah, you know, I had to, you know, represent for the podcast.
Yeah, no.
This is a long way back from then. I've had this shirt for this long. I got this back, I think maybe like my sophomore year.
Is that still available in the bookstore?
I wish. This is Nike, so you know back then we were Nike, but now I think they've been Adidas for 10 years now. So this is like a relic.
You could get a few some pretty change with that, with your autograph on there.
Maybe one day.
Yeah. By the way, what are you doing now? I almost left this podcast without asking one of the most important questions. What's going on now?
So I'm back in Spain. I was able to get through my rehab for my knee. I had an amazing doctor, amazing, you know, physical therapist. He got me back right. And now I'm back playing for Tarragona again for the third season.
You're still playing, and you told me you're up like a 6 days a week schedule. So I was like, where are you working? At Wall Street or something? Still playing. Great for you.
Yep. Still able to play. So I'm working on maybe playing a couple more years, and then
Awesome.
I'll be set up. Yeah. I can tell they're good guys. I didn't get to spend a lot of time with them, but just from the 15 or 20 minutes or so being in there, watching them interact with their teammates and stuff, and catching a little bit. I didn't get to see them play.
Uh-huh.
When I went down there to visit, I shot down to the Ryan Center, and at the time they had the guards doing a workout. So I was able to go in there and get to talk to TJ and actually meet Coach Cox for the first time. I hadn't met him before that day. And you would have thought he was my head coach. He was so welcoming, and he was so happy to know that I was, finishing my classes. And he's like, whatever you need. He's like, you helped build this foundation here. He was like, come back and play with us, whatever you want, whatever you need, we're here. And I was just like, oh wow, like, I felt like I was on the team, it was a really good feeling. So they have a really amazing, group of coaches and staff over there. So that program is in phenomenal hands. And I'm happy. I'm so happy to always see Rhode Island get on the map finally. Obviously, social media was up and coming back when I was there. It wasn't like it is now. So to see all the press and the social media following that Rhode Island gets now from the football, the basketball, the baseball, everything, volleyball, it's like, yes, finally people can see the greatness of URI.
What do you think about this year's team? I think of some good things about it. What's your opinion of it?
Honestly, I think this year's team is going to surprise a lot of people. I know, they lost some key guys with, Fats and some others, but because of the culture of, URI basketball, like, we're always one of those teams that come from behind when you least expect it, and beat teams that nobody thought we would beat. That brings me back to I think I was my sophomore year where we like pretty much went undefeated in the preseason games, beat Oak State, and we beat a lot of some high major schools. And I think that we're going to get more or less some of that this year too. So I won't be surprised if URI is finishing at the top of the A-10 this year, competing for that championship. Because I know they have it. It's just letting other people realize that, oh yeah, they got something over there.
I totally agree. And Orion, once again, I'm not going to keep on any longer. I keep having more questions for you, but you've been a great guest, and I'm wishing you all the luck with all the great things coming on, your life continuing, and don't be a stranger. Let's stay in touch, and
for sure,
have a great season in Spain.
I appreciate it, Scott. Yeah, I want to thank you again for having me on here, taking me down this, trip of memory lane. It's really nice to reminisce about all those great times there, and know that there's, still people like you out there that, take interest and care about us. We play basketball and it's great, but we're people too, and it always makes me feel good to see, fans realize that these are people, and we love them. They play for our basketball team and our college and stuff, but they're great people too. So it's real recognize real.
Well, I think we really got to know Orion Outerbridge, and I'm very impressed by you, not just on the basketball court, but as a person. And you're a very honest person. You shared the true Orion Outerbridge, and rather than just putting on a facade like some people do. So thanks for letting us into your life, and go Rhody.
Go Rhody. Appreciate it, Scott.
Okay.
Thanks again.
Thank you, Orion.